the podcast for neurodivergent weirdos and queers who forget about struggling to adult. They're struggling to human.
At least that's what everyone's telling us.
You're right.
Per usual. But seriously, I'm Angela. People call me Mama Pistachio, bringing sense to the conversation. I help individuals and organizations cultivate skills, spaces, and confidence to advocate for themselves and each other.
And I'm Molly, giving a big fork you to cookie cutter solutions. I help busy as fuck neurodivergent entrepreneurs make shit happen by bringing stability to their businesses while helping them do what makes sense to their brain.
Enough with the chit chat. Let's get down to business. What's the frickin' point?
With our powers combined, we navigate life through the drudgery, dreams, and all that shit in between. Plus, we were already having these conversations anyway, so why not record them, right?
Alrighty then. Get ready to call bullshit on what everyone's saying you should be doing as we navigate the spectrum between what your heart wants and the shit keeping you from it.
Hey everybody! Oh, I always love having a dance party back there while that thing's going. We should probably record it because it's the only time anybody's ever going to see me dance. But today we are talking, well, this is Angela and I, we're talking about imposter syndrome today.
And so much more. Like, we're going to say that we're talking about imposter syndrome, but not in the way you think we're going to talk about imposter syndrome.
Yes. And we were getting heated, like prepping, like, you know how we do our little prep beforehand. We were all like getting fired up and ready. So I think this is going to be a really great episode. All right. So.
And honestly, we had this episode planned like before we even started. When we first started talking about, hey, let's do a podcast together, it's like, let's do a podcast and we're going to talk about this.
Yes. This was actually supposed to be episode number 1. But we promised ourselves, this is why we have pre-time, and I guess it's a little behind the scenes. We always were like, we'll do a gut check and see how we're feeling and if there's something more important to us to talk about. And so for the past couple episodes, there have been. And so today, we finally get to do imposter syndrome.
Like, there's important stuff to talk about, but this one falls right in. And I think the last episode really led into this really well. So first, let me check in. Molly, last week you weren't feeling great. It was a rough week.
Yeah, and it only got worse from there. That was the best day of the week. So one of the things that I have learned over the decades of being a very depressed and anxious individual is that I'm really good at going, this is shitty. What can I do to change it? And so after we got off and finished all the podcast stuff, I literally took the rest of the week off. I did like one meeting for like our WISB board meeting. But other than that, I binge watched 4 seasons of Call the Midwife and cried, ate a lot of food, and just let myself have time to rest, which is something I normally in the past have not done. And so I would like push through to the point of making myself like bedridden with sickness because my body's like, For weeks. And so I didn't do that. That being said, I still don't feel great. I still don't feel amazing. I still feel like there's a cloud of doom. But I'm feeling better and I can do some things. But I'm not going to make myself work full time. And going forward, I'm probably only going to work like 3 or 4 hours a day. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You know, of course, I'm sitting over here going, this is growth. This is such growth. Molly is not forcing herself to work 15 hours a day, to do all the things, to be the best worker, the best mother, the best wife, the best everything. Molly right now is allowing herself to be the best Molly.
Yes.
And I know, oh my God, this just falls right into what we're talking about today. This just falls right into what we're talking about today of, okay, here I am like putting this positive spin on it, but I didn't do that in the beginning. right? Like
No.
last week when we were talking, it wasn't like, okay, Molly, what are the positive things that you can look at so that you can feel better? We weren't having that conversation.
No.
What would you have done? What would you have done had I done that to you?
I would have been like, Angela, where are you? What did you get abducted by aliens? Like, because that's so not you. But honestly, every time, this is actually, I can bring up a real life situation. This actually has happened to me. I have gone to the doctor and been like, I am terribly depressed and I need help and I need to see a therapist on a regular basis and I need these things because these are things that I know I need. And literally, I was like sent with, but you have so much to be grateful for. I'm here if you need me. So if you want to schedule another one, you can come back and talk to me, but you have so much, you have a great kid and a great husband and, you know, you have a roof over your head. And it's like, no shit. I fucking know that. That doesn't change how I feel. So I probably would have yelled at you. Because when people say, I am not okay, and they are met with, but the world's beautiful. Like, you are literally telling that person that their emotions aren't valid and their experiences aren't valid. And that is just terrible. Yeah, that is not meeting that person where they are. That is ignoring them.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. It really is. So that is, yeah, I know that you wouldn't put that, you wouldn't put up with that shit from me. No. That would have shut you down like so fast. That would shut me down too. And it shuts a lot of people down. Right. Yeah. So a while back, we read this article and we were talking about it. We've talked about this article a lot, but the article's name, I love the name of this article, is The Cult of Confidence. Could positive thinking be making us feel less secure? This is from July of 2022. So I guess it wasn't actually before we started talking podcast stuff, but it was still in the early phases of us talking about that. Anyway, that has nothing to do with it. So this article, usually I only pull like one or two quotes from an article, but there were so many just nuggets of amazingness in this article. So yes, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome because, oh my God, I am just dying because you just changed like English spelling to American English spelling in the document.
Sorry. There was a red squiggle. I know.
I know. I'm so used to those because I work with people in the Umbrella Alliance. 3 of the founding members are in Australia. So like we have this mishmash of spelling. Anyway,
I honestly didn't read the word. I just saw red squiggle.
That's so funny. So anyway, back to the article. So at the beginning of this, Molly said we're going to talk about imposter syndrome today. And we are, but not at all in the way that people talk about it. Like, you have imposter syndrome and you need to feel better about yourself. And if you feel better about yourself, then you can get rid of that imposter syndrome because it's a bad thing. And guess who has the most imposter syndrome? When we're looking across it and we talk about imposter syndrome, all of that is, all of that, it's almost like a marketing thing, almost is like aimed at women. It is aimed at women. And so I love this article for this reason. So here is one of the things that it says, and this is down in the article, but it was one of the big things that I loved. Feeling unsure is common, but high achieving women are told they're suffering from an ailment. For Dr. Jessica Taylor, a chartered psychologist, author, and feminist campaigner, the term imposter syndrome is too close to hysteria, the historical diagnosis given to women who made, oh my God, I just know that I have this. I want to put this on the screen because I want everybody to see it. The term imposter syndrome is too close to hysteria, the historical diagnosis given to women who made too much noise or took up too much space. So-called imposter syndrome is more common in successful women than in successful men because society is more likely to tear down women who become too opinionated, intelligent, educated, or assertive, she says. Believing that we have a syndrome is the desired outcome. Take that in for a second, people. Take that in.
Okay.
Molly, have you used the term imposter syndrome to talk to people?
Yes. And
'Cause I have.
I probably still will, to be honest. Because and not in the guise of hysteria though. I mean, I see what she's going against. And we were talking about this earlier. If you have no clue what hysteria is, I encourage you to watch the movie Hysteria. It has Maggie Gyllenhaal in it. It's really good. And it kind of shows it was not long ago that women were institutionalized or forcibly given hysterectomies to cure them of just being themselves. So
like having an emotion and expressing that emotion.
Yes.
Ah.
I mean, there's more to that movie that makes it like good and funny and
like
just
dildos.
Like dildos.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll learn a lot about dildos in this movie.
It's the main theme. One of the main themes. But it's a really good movie. But it kind of helps kind of frame this state of mind of you know, these people are just being themselves. I do feel like for me, having something as a label, not because I want to diagnose myself with something else, it helps me disassociate from the thing and be able to look at it from a different perspective. That when I feel like it doesn't have a thing, I just feel broken and uncontrollably able to fix that thing. So by giving somebody a word, like, it helps them go, oh, this is something I can help do something for. Like, so for me, I don't want it to be like, oh, you're a woman, so you must have hysteria. But like, but at the same time, like, I've had imposter syndrome that are non-business related, like, or that concept of imposter syndrome for like being a mom, especially one after fertility issues and having an identity that changed so drastically and feeling like out of the box and not fitting in, like human imposter, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like for me, as much as I agree that it can be thrown around willy-nilly, I do feel like it gives some people some power to do something different.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you bring it up like that, because that's the thing. It's not necessarily, I wish that it was something other than syndrome. But regardless, there is an issue there, but it's an underlying issue.
Right.
The issue is that what has society told you that you should be, because, we know that society likes to should all over you. Right. And we like to should all over ourselves too. But because of that, we are told you should be this, which then creates a systemic issue where women who are successful or not fitting a quote unquote traditional female role are imposters, that they're doing something wrong. And that's the conversation that we can have in using that term. We can hear somebody say, oh, I have imposter syndrome, or oh, they have imposter syndrome, and say, okay, let's look deeper than that and really get into those deeply seated beliefs that we have inside of us to be able to let them go.
Right. And a lot of times I as a brand strategist and cough business coach, like both things, I do not like saying I'm a business coach, but ultimately I do coach people by doing strategy. It's the thing. Anyway, I do talk people through imposter syndrome, and I give that as like an umbrella term, because underneath that is usually you struggle with money because you grew up with less than, others. You have some type of issue getting testimonials because you can't handle rejection. So that might become something else. And so normally it's them telling themselves, I'm not worthy of something. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of being paid what I'm worth. I'm not worthy of getting testimonials because they're just going to tell me I'm a shitty person.
Right.
And
what
so,
if they say no? If I ask for a testimonial and they don't respond to the email, then that must mean that I did something wrong because
right.
they don't want to tell me I did something right when in fact they didn't receive the email or they just didn't have time or they forgot about it.
And so I do find that the concept of imposter syndrome is more so like this umbrella grouping together term for all the other shit that you're just not emotionally processing.
And we're not emotionally processing it because emotions are bad. Right? Emotions are bad. And that's why I like this article so much because it's really looking at and we're going to come back to that coaching thing here in just a minute. Okay. But this article is really looking at how positive psychology has, and there are going to be some people who are seriously rubbed the wrong way on this one. So if you are a coach out there listening and this triggers you, I'm going to ask you as a coach, I'm going to ask you to stop for a minute and take a look and say, why is this triggering me? Is it triggering me because I'm 100% wrong when I say what I say? And that's not you, because you have, from a place of awareness and intentionality, not done this. Awesome. Great, because there are plenty of people out there who have, but there are a whole lot more who have not. And those are the people who we are talking about today. So, and we're not saying it's bad, we're just saying it is. This is something that's happening out there. So positive psychology is the underlying piece of a lot of coaching. A lot of coaching. And positive psychology can be harmful. And I'm going to say especially to those who are neurodivergent, those who struggle with mental health, who struggle with being positive sometimes because it's really fucking hard and everybody's telling them to be positive and just negating who they are as human beings and making them feel defective because it's hard for them to be positive. So here, I love this one. Okay. By limiting conversation to positive things, this again comes from that same article. By limiting conversation to positive things, they fail to understand the full emotions inherent in your experience. We cannot always be talking about the positive things. And I have found that a lot of coaches take the approach of let's focus on the positive or let's reframe everything into a positive space. And sometimes the things cannot really be reframed into that positive space. What we really need to do is just sit there and look at it for what it really is. And maybe get rid of the toxic positive crap and maybe look at optimism instead of, well, let's be positive.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like grief. People process grief at their own pace. They get through all those stages. The stages happen, but they happen at different places for different people. So when something shitty happens and a person is, or just the doom cloud comes, I guess, right. I can't force the doom cloud to go away. I cannot go, oh, but I have so much to be thankful for and expect like it's like in Pooh Bear and it's going to fly away. Like it doesn't do that. And so if we let people work through those negative emotions or just the realistic emotions that they're feeling and let them get to the point where they can be like, okay, that was shitty. And let them choose. I want to turn this into something where I'm going to learn a lesson from, and let them have that choice at their pace in their own time. That's not toxic. That's allowing somebody to get through a situation in a way that was most beneficial to them.
Yeah.
And that's why and I think that's why some people do therapy and they do so well, is because for them, those stages are quick.
Yeah.
And for other people, they might spend 40 years in therapy and make very little progress because the timing is just not on like their side in that way. And that's okay, because that's their life. And we can't look at that and be like, well, they're not doing it right.
Right. Or because the professional who they're working with, because this isn't just about, you know, the coaching industry and how there are no standards and all of that stuff there,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
This is also like, we have to be critical thinkers in who we're working with. And if it doesn't feel good to us and the work that we're doing together, not just because it's putting me in an uncomfortable space and I'm not ready to grow. That's a different thing. Like that's cool. Good. You're a little bit uncomfortable. You've at this point of disequilibrium, that's where learning happens and growth happens. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're doing something and it's the same thing over and over and over and over again, and we're not growing and we're not hitting those milestones that we would like to hit, just because this person is a professional doesn't mean that they're doing it right for us. Just because they've had
a bad professional either.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It just might mean that they're not the right one for us. So it's really important to understand where we're coming from, to understand how we work, to have some self-awareness when we go in to work with a professional. If you're paying somebody like $500 an hour to coach you and y'all aren't aligned and they're doing things that make you feel bad, then you need to stop. And you know, there are some things.
We say that if you're one of our clients and you're doing that, tell us that we're not aligned. We're okay with that.
Right. I mean, so one of the conversations that I have had, so I do consultations and mentoring depending on what they need for sexuality professionals, sex coaches, sex therapists, other people who are doing that. And sometimes you have to look at it and you have to say, one of the big conversations I have with them is, okay, so they signed up for 6 months. They signed up for 6 months, and then you recognize that there's something that's just not working. Is it within your own ethics to continue working with them, even though you know that you're not aligned? Or do you stop what you're doing and have that conversation with them? To me, that's what a good coach does. A good coach says, you know what? This is not in your best interest. I can sit here and keep taking your money, but you're not going to meet the goals that you want to meet with me because this is not working, or because you need to see a mental health professional. And I'm happy to work alongside that, but you have this thing and I need you to work on that before we can do this, you know, future oriented work. We need you to do something else. I think that that's something really important, but unfortunately, a lot of coaches don't do that. Oh, you had a contract, you already paid me $7,000. Bummer.
Yeah. And I think that also comes from the fact that we're going to get back into cookie cutters. You know, my stance on cookie cutters. I feel like a lot of times that coaches have fallen under the guidance of big business coaches, who are like, well, if you have a contract, you have a contract. No, chindas. And they've forgotten why they got into this in the first place. Like, what motivated you to become a coach and help people? Because I feel like they're trying to check mark the check marks of this marketing scheme, because at that point it is a marketing scheme. And it's become more about the money and less about people.
Right.
Which is unfortunate. And this is like a lot of different big biz like cookie cutter strategies. Like there's a lot of those. And I see it all the time, and people come like crying because it's not working, or they feel bad for these people, but they have to follow the rules, otherwise it's not going to work. And like, I feel like that is also contributing to some of what you're talking about, where people are holding people to contracts, and even in ethical situations where they should not be holding people to contracts. Because I feel like at that point you're falling under, there's a clause in most contracts that says that if you're unable to provide the services you intended to provide, that the contract can be voided. And if you and your client cannot see eye to eye, you no longer can provide the service that you said you were going to. And technically that clause should be valid at that point, regardless.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, that's just it. And I don't want anybody out there who's listening to be like, oh my God, they're just bagging on coaches. I'm a coach.
Technically I am too.
Right?
Like, I don't like to say it, but I am.
Right? Like, I'm a coach. I'm, along with being a certified clinical sexologist, I'm also a certified sex coach. I do coaching. This is what I do. But I have come at it from a very different stance. I think because of my own personal experiences with it. And I will also say, when I very, very, very first started coaching back in 2014, I was that person who did confidence workshops. Right? Like I was like, we're going to do this confidence workshop. And I didn't know and realize that what I was doing was I was telling women, you are the ones who need to fix this. This is your responsibility to fix this. And I wasn't looking at the larger issue that really needed to be addressed. So, same article. Confidence culture opens up a way of thinking about gender inequality as something women do to themselves. Lack of confidence is positioned as a personal defect. When we hear business leaders, politicians, coaches, or brands talking about inequality, women's confidence is always discussed. But we're letting institutions and wider structures off the hook for making changes as long as we're saying that women are responsible. And that was Rosalind Gill, who is co-author of the book Confidence Culture. That's big. I know that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did I learn where I'm at, my positioning and everything in coaching through a coaching program? No, I did not. Because that's not what coaching programs teach you. Coaching programs teach you, there were a lot of ethics actually in my coaching program. There was a huge, especially in sex coaching, there's a huge piece of ethics that you look at. And then there's also a whole ethical thing for like the International Foundation of Coaches and everything. There's a whole ethical thing. So ethics is part of the conversation for people who are getting, certified and all of that. But this stance, there are a lot of people who are certified and do positive psychology and all of that stuff. And this stance of it's our responsibility to address the wider issues of what's happening within a system rather than the individuals themselves. That is not what coaching, for the most part, looks at, unless you're with a very specific person who that is their personal goal, is to look at the system. Coaches work with individuals for the most part. That's what they do. They work with individuals. So that's where this has all gone wrong. In my opinion, that's where the whole thing has gone wrong, is we're looking at individuals and saying, if you pep yourself up, if you are positive enough, if you put a smile on your face and you do all of the work that people are calling toxic positivity, right? Then you will be confident.
Yeah. So, and I see this similar to fake it till you make it. So,
yep, I've said that before.
Well, and I did too, until when I was my least authentic self. Fake it till you make it was my mantra, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's the same as saying, pretend to be somebody you're not. Shove who you are in a little box and lock it up and throw it away, and then everything will work.
Right.
And we tell, like, a lot of people say that to neurodivergent folks about who they are as an identity. I sent you an article this morning about tattoos in the workplace. Like, cover all those up because, you know, it's unprofessional. Like, all of those things are part of this. And the funny part is, to me, is that if the person was allowed to be who they were and do the things that they love, they would be most likely more confident because they get to be who they are.
Yes, 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 yes.
You cannot fake anything till you make it, because you're never going to fucking make it.
Right.
You can't slap on lip gloss and lipstick if that's not who you are and expect confidence to come through.
Right.
Unless you're a
and
really
it might
great
work for
actor.
a little while.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it might work for a little while. But ultimately, if that's not who you are, deep down inside, and if you are not within your integrity, then you are not working within a zone of consent, and it will break you down and you will burn out.
Right.
Period. There's no getting away from that. It will affect your relationships, your personal relationships, your work relationships, and every single aspect of your life.
And this just came to me. I don't know how relevant it is. We're going to go down this rabbit hole. You talked about relationships. When couples are dating, they are in their best behavior.
Yes.
Right? They're not always being who they are authentically. So they date.
Truth.
They get married. And slowly that facade starts to fade away. And eventually you have people who divorce after 10 or 15, 20 years because they're not the person I thought they were. We've grown apart. The reality is you faked it till you no longer made it. And now you both are truly who you are. And it's not who you guys want to be with anymore. Like, so
right.
I feel like this is the same thing with like friends that grow apart. Because you're so excited to be new friends. You're like on your best behavior and hiding different parts of you, or all of these things. And that confidence is like across the board. We're not like just talking about business. We're not talking about all these things like this imposter syndrome, this lack of confidence. I'm using lots of air quotes for you listening.
Lots of air quotes, y'all.
I'm watching myself make all these air quotes, but I'm not saying anything. It all comes down to inauthenticity is what is breaking everything apart.
Right.
And I feel like for the most part, cisgendered men get to be who they are because they're cisgendered men.
Cisgender heterosexual men.
Oh, I should.
White
yes,
men.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes. Everybody else has to pretend they're somebody they're not to quote unquote be successful, which I think what we're underlining here is that is furthest from the truth.
Yeah. And as neurodivergent queer people, we get it. Like, we have experienced this for ourselves. And I want to acknowledge and address that there are a whole lot of intersections that I have not experienced.
And will never experience.
Right? And will never experience. The experience and the oppression and the shit that you have to go through if you are a Black transgender woman who is choosing to be a sex worker because that is what you enjoy doing, that is a job that you actually want to do, you are experiencing so many forms of bias and oppression and shit that I am never, ever, ever going to understand because it's not an intersection that I'm in. Even if I were a transgender woman who is choosing to be a sex worker, and I'm specifically using this. I want people to understand I'm specifically using sex workers because I support sex workers and I support sex work as a viable and good when it's done in a healthy, safe way, which anybody who gets into that wants it to be done in a healthy, safe way, and it's not done in a healthy, safe way because of the laws and the stupid shit that have been put there to not allow people to be who they are. Let's just put that right there. I'm using that because that it's a truth that is out there that people don't want to see. And as soon as we add different intersections onto things, and of course people aren't seeing my hand movements here, I'm like building, looks like I'm playing with Legos. As soon as we add more and more and more intersections on there, we can start being in this space where positive psychology is going to be more and more and more harmful when it is done in a way that does not look at the intersections.
And for those that don't know, the book on positive psychology is from the early 1900s. It was written by a man before like brain imaging was a thing. So there's no way at that time for any of what we know today to be acknowledged or thought about or considered. And so intersections were not taken into account when that book was written.
Right. When this original concept started, originally, because you can go to positivepsychology.com and you can look on there and see how it's all science-based, right? This is all science-based and we have these brain scans and this and that. I am not saying that positive psychology in itself is bad.
No.
I am saying that the toxic positivity that often happens because people don't understand the entire process, the entire system, that people don't understand intersectionality, that is dangerous. And therefore, it is important for us as individuals, for some of us as individuals who maybe are very trusting and somebody makes you feel loved and appreciated for the first time in a long time, and then you latch onto that person and you pay them a lot of money because you had this great conversation with them, and then you're like, yes, I want to do your program, and you pay them a lot of money, and then you find out that your mental health is suffering and you're starting to feel worse about yourself than you did at the beginning. It's important to look at it and see if this is something that's happening to you, because there is a big difference between positivity and toxic positivity.
Yeah.
So let's look at that difference. Toxic positivity seeks to reject, deny, or displace any acknowledgement of the stress, negativity, and possible disabling features of trauma, and instead looks only through rose-colored glasses, which came from an article on EdCan called It's Okay to Be Okay Too, which I love the name of this article because have you ever been that person who was not like, oh, I'm okay? And you always, what do people say if they're like, how are you? And you're like, I'm okay. Oh, what's wrong? Because you didn't say you were fantastic, you were amazing. I spent years and years and years of my life with I think I might have said this before, with a scripted response. I am fantastic, amazing, whatever word I wanted to put in there, and I refuse to be any other way. People loved that response. People love that response. Angela, she's so bubbly and happy all the time. And I was dying inside.
I'm only laughing because you are not bubbly.
I am not. I am not. Yeah. No, I'm not.
And like, I'm the exact opposite. People will be like, how you doing? And I'm like, it's another day. Like, I'm here,
right.
aren't
I? Right. Exactly. You know? And I so often want to say that, right? So often I want to be like, you know what? I'm not okay.
I'm not fine.
I'm not fine. Okay. I'm not okay. But I also don't want to talk about it.
Right.
You know, like, why can't we say that? Why can't we say, I'm not okay, but I don't want to talk about it? This situation that we're in is okay. I can get through it. It's all good. But technically, I'm not okay.
Yes. I think it's very interesting to me. And this goes back to like linguistics and meaning and intention of words and all of that. But so many people ask, hey, how are you doing? With no expectation of a real response, where I always assume they really want the actual answer. And so I'm always like, it's not a great day. Mm-hmm. Moving on. Next part of the conversation. And like, I genuinely ask, if I'm like, hey, how you doing today? I genuinely do want that person to answer me, because I can't move on with the conversation until we've addressed the elephant in the room that is their emotions that brought them there today.
Right.
Because to me, you cannot have a valuable conversation if you're not acknowledging how the person is feeling in that moment, because they're not going to be able to do anything if they are overwhelmed with anything other than what is happening.
Right.
And if you don't give them the opportunity to talk that through, if they want, or just be like, you know, it really is a sucky day and I might not be as like excited about the conversation as possible. Because then I know, oh, they've kind of leveled out their response. I thought they were going to be really excited. They're showing a leveled out response. They must hate what I'm doing. No, they're just having a shitty day. I need to know that so I can accurately change how I'm expecting them to respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Now that I've talked through all of that, epiphany, is I have done that subconsciously. Like, that is how I've lived my life subconsciously up until this point. But I think that's the difference between being a toxically positive person and having realistic expectations of humans. Because if you come to a meeting and expect everybody to give their 110% 100% of the time, you are being toxic.
Right.
Because you're not allowing anybody's experiences or lives to be a factor. And that is not how humans work.
Right. And, okay, we are also, I'm so glad that you said that. Confidence is different in different areas of our lives. We can be a very, very, very confident person in one space and be really not confident in another space. But in the industry, in business, in all over, it seems like this word is used as a blanket statement. They are a confident person. And then you have this expectation on you that no matter where you go, you have to be that. And it's funny because people will look at me and they will say, Angela, you are the most confident person that I have ever met. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, but you know who you are, and you say what you think, and you are really successful and all this. And I'm like, yeah. And I have confidence that I have had to work really hard to make that stuff happen because I am not a confident person.
Well, and I think people confuse straight shooting, logical statements, problem solving skills with confidence.
What? You mean like traditional masculine, white, male, heterosexual, cisgender, wealthy, boss man qualities are confidence? What?
No, but that's no, but I don't think that's confidence. But I think people confuse it for confidence.
People do confuse that as confidence, and then they see those people who have those skills in place as confident, and that can be a problem because then if you're not one of those people and you have those skills, then you're confident in a space that you shouldn't be confident in because you don't quote unquote belong here. Yeah, it is. We could go and talk about this. We might have to do another episode.
Yes.
To talk about resilience, right? We might have to just like do another episode on this because to talk about the whole resilience side of it and to talk about so much more in this. But anything else that you want to say about this today? Because we got to let people go.
No, I know we do. No, I think we're just going to have to run a part 2.
I think we're going to have to run a part 2. So stay tuned for part 2, which will be talking about this, maybe answering some questions. People can throw their questions in. And yeah, we can answer questions and have more on this amazing conversation. Thanks for listening to Drudgery, Dreams, and In Between, a weekly live podcast coming to you every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific. Subscribe now wherever podcasts are found. If you'd like to support...
Except Apple, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, except Apple.
Apple and us are being... We're having a difficulty. Anyway, sorry.
Technical difficulties way too many times. And so it was like, okay, we're going to set that off to the side and come back to it later. If you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To catch all the latest from us, visit us at drudgeryanddreams.com and follow on your favorite social media platforms at Drudgery and Dreams. Thanks again. See you next time.